This is looking odd. What did I make that made it look like this? I'm so confused. New project. Oh, I chose Windows Console instead of empty project. Okay.
Professor?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we do chapter 3 review on Monday? I wasn't here.
We did not. We did not do the quiz for it. We did not do the quiz together in class, so you're just going to want to take it. And the faster you take it, the faster I'll grade it. We could go back and look at it, though. There wouldn't be anything wrong with that.
I was just asking for something.
Yeah. You're asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go grab my boilerplate. All right, so the switch statement. The switch statement is like a big long series of if, else if statements. It's when we want to select from several alternatives. Now there's some requirements for the switch statement. Specifically, this needs to be an integer type. We cannot do a switch based on a floating point value. So if we're going to switch based on x, it better be an integer. Some languages let you do stranger forms of switching based on strings or the like. I do not think that this is one of them.
Is it only not floating points, you said?
Correct. It will not support floats and it will not support doubles.
So if you had a floating point, would you just do like else if,
Yeah, you would need to do that, and even that is slightly risky. I probably have not done the lecture about, or have I, how you compare two floating point numbers to each other. That's a topic unto itself. The problem with floating point numbers is that once you've calculated them, you're not guaranteed that they're going to be exactly right. If you do 0.1 times 10, you'd think that the answer would be exactly 1. 0.1 times 10 should be exactly 1. Instead, since it's floating points, it's very close to 1, but it's not going to necessarily equal 1. And the way that you compare them, we're going to talk about switch first. So here's the syntax for it. Okay, when I said integer, you can also do it on a character, because a character is underneath it all an integer. It's just a letter that has a ASCII value underneath it. So enter A, B, or C. All right, they type in A, B, or C, and then we do switch. You entered A if it was an A, or you entered B if it was a B, or you entered C if it was a C, or we print out you did not enter A, B, or C, you dirty dog. So we had a program where we were calculating the density of something, and we were the sphere that was the size of a marble, made out of gold, and it weighed this, that, and the other. We could have used switch statements in order to handle that. It would look something like this. I'm not going to go and get the specs for that assignment, but we'll just pretend. So let's give them a choice. See out. Do you like 1, gold, 2, silver, or 3, iron? Question mark. Then we're going to need to let them enter that choice. So we need a CIN statement. So we need a variable to hold that. So I'm going to do string. Nah. Let's see if we can do a switch based on a string. Nah. Int metal is equal to, all right, int metal, and then CIN error in the metal. That's their choice. So Hunter done something really cool where he actually typed in the whole word of the material, and it did some conversions based on that. And that's, I was being lured in that direction. I decided, nah, we'll just do it like this. And then Then we're going to do switch based on that metal. And let's say that based on that metal, we were going to set the atomic weight of it. So we need a variable to represent, like, or even density, I don't care. So let's declare a variable called density, and then we will fill in the density with the metal based on what they've chosen. So double density. So if they chose 1, case 1, colon, let's tell them what they did. Cout error error quote gold exclamation mark backslash n end quote. And then let's set the density of gold. I don't know what it is. I'm just purely making up a number. And then case 2 colon cout error arrow silver, not sliver, silver exclamation mark backslash n. And I've made a mistake, by the way. We will have to go back and fix that.
And like the little commas, what are they called?
And the density of silver is 100. All right. Yes, ma'am?
Aren't you supposed to put the single quotes on the numbers of case 1?
I would if this was a char. If that had been defined a char, then I would need to put quotes around it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But I just let them type it in as a number rather than a character.
Right.
All right, and then if it's 3, they chose iron. Cout error quote iron backslash n end quote semicolon, and the density is equal to 75, or I don't know, right? 150. Maybe iron is heavier than gold. I think the other's true, but whatever. And then lastly, we need a default case to handle if they chose none of the above. Cout. Invalid choice. So density is 1 backslash n end quote end quote semicolon, density is equal to 1, like that. And then we could do something with that density. We could calculate some mass, you know, based on a certain volume of whatever. Well, let's run it. I did make a mistake, and the mistake is that I didn't put those break statements in. So when I run it, I'm going to make the font bar larger. I'm going to type in something bad first. I'm going to type in an invalid value like 4, 5, and it tells me the invalid choice. The density is 1. Okay, I buy that. My fault. I run it again. I'm going to choose iron. Cool, iron. And then it says invalid choice. I go, what? So I run it again. I'm going to choose one of the other metals. I'll choose gold. And it says gold, silver, iron, invalid choice. It's gone crazy. That's because we don't have the break statements. So when I chose gold, it went and it printed that out and it did that, and then it fell through to do that and do that, and then it fell through again to the next case. And then finally it fell through to that. So we need to insert break statements into it to stop it from triggering more than one of these options. So break there, break there, and break there. Now the default one doesn't have it. Doesn't require a break because it's the very last thing, right? There's nothing to fall into. So I'm not going to scroll down and add a break statement under the default. Although it wouldn't hurt. There wouldn't be anything wrong with doing that. Let's make sure it works now. Gold. Okay, and it only activated one of those choices. So usually you use case and switch when these choices are supposed to be mutually exclusive. right? It's only supposed to do one of these things. You can kind of jury-rig it to allow you to do multiple things. Let's give ourselves a slightly better example of using switch and case. Or maybe not better, but different functionality. Maybe some of y'all are old enough to have had cell phones. Where if you sent somebody a text message, if you were going to type my name, you press J once, and then to get the E, you press 3 2 times, and then to get the F, you press 3 times, right? You ever have to do that? Surely some of y'all had the little flip phones. You didn't all grow up with iPhones.
What's one time?
Yeah, long time ago. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write something that shows that if they want an A, they better type it 2. And if they want a B, they better type it 2 2. No, wait. I want to rewind that. We're not going to do that particular one. Instead, we're going to do, maybe y'all have seen the really old movies where somebody would give a phone number and it would start with letters. And Midwest City's area code then was called Regent, R-E. And then there were several others. But R stood for 7. E stood for 3. And I guess whoever invented the system thought that the word Regent was easier to remember than 7-3. So you could say, I live on, I want you to call me. My number is Regent 45832. And the number is supposed to go 7345832. That obviously went along by the wayside. Nobody past the 60s or 50s or whatever did that. But, there could be those, people would give out phone numbers like, call, 1-800-BIG-FUN. Okay, 1-800, and then a big is a 2, a B is a 2, and an I is a 4, and a G is a 4. You'd have to translate it in your mind as you were calling. 1-800-244. Where's my F? 3. Right. That's what we're going to do. Exactly. So why don't we write a little loop that'll ask the user to enter a letter and as long as that letter is not a period, we're going to turn it into a number to display. So let's make a character called CH. And we're just going to set it equal to a space to begin with. Since it's a character, we have to use single quotes rather than double quotes. And we have to put something in there. It could be anything. We could start off with anything except for what our character that stops us from going, which is period. So I just put a space there, a single space. And then we're going to have our while loop that says while CH exclamation mark equal, while CH not equal, single quote, period, end quote, open brace, close curly brace. Now we're going to ask them for the character.
Wait.
Nope, we're going to do that above it. We're going to do that above it. So we're going to come up here and we're going to see out a message that says see out, enter a phone character, colon, end quote, semicolon. And then CIN, arrow, CH, like that. So now that we have a character, we can do a switch on it. And if it's an A, you know, it's a 2. If it's a B, it's a 2. If it's a C, it's a 2. Isn't it kind of funny that when you look at that keypad, the letter 1 doesn't have any letters on it? That's because long distance numbers started with 1. And so no local code could begin with 1. So they left it out of the lettering system. It's also kind of weird that one of these has 4 different. Wait, I'm not seeing the one with 4.
Yeah, because Z is not on there for some reason.
Yeah, they left Z off. Z is also supposed to be there for 9. That's kind of weird. Alrighty. Bad choice of images then. Hurry up. Okay, that's too small. But yeah, W, X, Y, and Z are all considered 9. We're going to stick with the other one. So let's do a switch based on CH. Switch, parentheses, CH in parentheses. Case, single quote, A, close single quote, colon, C out, arrow, arrow, quote, 2, end quote, arrow, arrow, ENDL. Break. Yes, ma'am.
Can there only be like one case in there? Like, can you not make it like A or?
Yes, you can. You've already just... Spoiler alert. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Exactly. We can list multiple cases. Because what letters are supposed to generate a 2? A, B, and C. So let's do case A, case B, case C, and we might even want the lowercase versions of those, right? So case lowercase a, end quote, case lowercase b, end quote, case lowercase c, end quote. And for all of those things, it's supposed to print out a 2. And now D, E, and F print out a 3.
Can you not do A, comma B, comma C?
That would be nice. This is as concise as we can get unless we follow a different approach. And after we've asked for our character, we need to get the next one. So I'm just going to copy, whoopsie, I'm just going to copy these 2 statements right here and paste them after the end of our switch. The C out, enter a phone number, and CIN, arrow, arrow, CH. Just going to highlight those 2 guys, copy them, paste them. Enter a phone character. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now we didn't tell them they could stop it by entering a period. But we know that secret backdoor. I'm going to press a period instead of go on and do the rest of it. Well, I've only done one character, right? I've only done one number on the keyboard. I need to handle D, E, and F, and so on. So that's a separate set of cases. I could just do some judicious copying and pasting. Case D, end quote, colon, case E, end quote, colon, case, quote, F, end quote, colon, C out, arrow, arrow, quote, 3, arrow, arrow, ENDL. And I am going to do a little bit of copying and pasting so I can get the lowercase letters there. And now to get 4, I'm going to copy those 3 lines and paste them and change it to GHI. Now what happens if they type in none of the above? Should we blow up? Should we print an error message? I think we ought to just print in whatever they type, right? Because like a dash, if they're using dashes or spaces to separate, you know, the letters of their phone number.
Are we doing all the 9 numbers?
Yeah, we ought to do all 9 of them, but I'm lazy, so I'm not going to do any more than just those 3. But I am going to add the default case. Default, if what they type in doesn't match any of the above, we just C out what they typed in, CH, followed by ENDL. Oh, and I made a mistake. Anybody spot the mistake?
The break.
I forgot to put the break here and the break here.
Also, DHI has the same value as GEF.
Okay, I'm sorry, pardon me.
You still have to set to 3 for GHI.
Oh, you're right, right. 2, 3, that one should be a 4. All right, so enter a phone character. How about a 1? 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. A is a 2. B is a 2. C is a 2. D is a 3. H is a 4. A P, well, P isn't recognized, so just printed out P because we haven't done the rest of them. But that's enough to get the idea
But
going,
didn't
right?
we do a default though? Didn't they just say, oh, wait, never mind.
Now, we could turn the same idea into that texting one that I was telling you about, where if you type in an A, you have to print out a 2, but if they typed in a B, we'd want to print out 2, 2, and if they typed in a C, we'd want to print out 2, 2, 2. But I don't feel like making this do that. All right, so who's got it running and who not? Spotted. There. All right, so since looking at the quizzes is the best way to prepare, and I really should have added something or period to stop, right? Just to let them know. See out error, error quote. You can enter a dot to stop the loop. Something like that, right? Just to let them know that as they're testing these things out, that's how they stop it from running. And it goes on to the next part. So let's go and look at quiz 3. Hopefully everybody knows how to review their quizzes, so if you want to just pop one open that you've already taken, feel free.
So do we not add Z in if we're doing all 9 numbers?
We could, Z, I would put Z on even though that one picture didn't show it. All right, so this question, what does this evaluate to? 1 times 2 plus 3 times 4. Do we do addition first or multiplications first? Multiplication. So 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 plus 12 is 14. Assume the following code. If we let them type in to fill in 3 different variables, and they type in 10, 20, and 30, which one's going to equal 31 after this executes? Okay, I guess I've made this a little bit trickier than I thought, but I see what we're doing. We're letting them type in the values X, Y, and Z, and then we're adding 1 to each one. So
Z.
they type in 10, 20, 30, each one gets added, Z is equal to 31. So if both operands of the division operator are int values, the result will be rounded down to an int. That is absolutely true. We can see that if we put this into our code. Cout, arrow, arrow, 3 divided by 4, arrow, arrow, ENDL. But we better put this inside parentheses. If we do that, yeah, you don't need to add this to your program because it's just illustrating a point. When I run it, it's going to print out 0. Because 3 divided by 4, rounded down, is 0. So an int divided by an int is always an int. All right, we've talked about using getLine. Do you always need to use getLine every time you need to read input into a string, or should you use it if the input has spaces? You use it if it's going to have spaces. Otherwise, it's just a lot more complication for no benefit. So on Tuesday, we were talking about set precision and width. We were talking about the things that are inside IOmanip class. And Shelley, you missed those, so you may at least appreciate having this little bit of information, but do watch the lecture. So if you're using the IOmanip class, you want to set the precision, meaning the number of characters, how many numbers it's going to display, like how many numbers it's going to display after the decimal point. Use set precision, and you only call it once until it needs to be changed. So the question was worded like this: set precision must be called before each element, not just once. And that's false. There's another one that did have to be called before each element. Which was that? Set W, right. So even though I don't see that as a quiz question, I'm going to put that here. Set W, which sets the minimum width of the output, must be called before each element. So you have to call it multiple times, while set precision you only have to call once. What happened? Where did my thing about set precision go? Did I?
You use another add thing.
Oh, I have 2 of them going. Great. All right. Thank you. Write a line of code that does the following expression. Here is not the correct answer. A equals 2x divided by 3x plus 1. Why is that wrong?
The computer has no idea what 2x is.
Right, the computer doesn't know that if you put a 2 and an x together that they're supposed to be magically multiplied. We actually have to put the asterisks there.
Can I retake my quiz?
You can take it as many times as you want, absolutely. I will have them all graded tonight, so then you can take them again, and then text me to let me know that you want it graded, and I'll grade it as soon as possible. I'll be trying to grade them each and every night, so you can judge your preparedness. All right, this is just another one of those. The multiplications happen first, so 2 times 3 is 6, and then add a 1 to it and a 4 to it. All right, which one can hold a larger, more precise value? Long? Well, it sounds good, but doubles. Doubles are floating points which support exponents. So anything that supports exponents can hold a bigger value. So definitely a double holds a larger value than a long, just by virtue of it being floating point. Given the following declaration, take y and turn it into an int to store into x. There's 3 different syntaxes which work. to turn a float y into an int x, you could do it like this. X is equal to, this is that Python syntax you may have learned. Or you can do this, x is equal to int y. Or you can do the most complicated long form. X equals static, and this is what the book shows, but the book does show the other ways as well. Static cast, int, angle, parentheses, yeah, the most horrible syntax possible, but works. I'm always afraid someone's going to ask me why you would use a third one. I'd have to Google it up myself.
Why the third one?
I don't know. I don't know. All right. So that would have been the answer to this one, right? X is equal to int, y, or some other version of it. All right, to use the random function to generate a random number, what # include do y'all use? And like 3/4 of y'all gave me the same answer I didn't want. What did y'all do? Did you Google it up? Because you all got standard lib.h, which honestly is correct. You can find an RAND function inside stand.lib.h, but it's a C file. It's not a C++ file. So we don't want to do that. We want to use cstdlib. But those of y'all who did that, is that how you found it? You Googled it? It's totally okay to say yeah.
Oh, no, but you told us to use this standard library.
Yeah, you told us to use that one.
I told you to use this.
Well, before, when we were talking about, when we first talked about the
Yeah.
function, that you looked it up and you found.
Oh, and so it's my fault. That's why so many people did that. Okay. I brought shame to my ancestors. I need somebody to slap my wrist. Ouch. Okay. I'm sorry that I told y'all standard lib.h. It's cstandlib. All right. Okay. So which one of these is an integer type? As a matter of fact, I'm going to go and I'm going to put this as a note here. Use cstandlib to get the RAND and srand functions. I'm terrified that I told y'all to use standard lib.h. I'm so sorry. But now I understand why. Okay. I kept getting that answer back on the quiz. I should have made it multiple choice and not have that as one of the answers. All right, anyways, back here. Which one of these is an integer type? Right. What is the stream manipulator function that sets how many spaces will set the next data? That's set W, set width. And Rochelle, you do really need to watch the video. That question makes utterly no sense without it.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about that. Set W sets the minimum width. I'm just going to scroll past that one. Here's another one of those that if you don't put in the asterisk, it's not going to work. So where it says what goes here, area equals pi times r times r or times POW r comma 2. So there's two possible answers for that. Area equals pi times POW r comma 2. That would work. Or you could replace this POW r comma 2 just with r times r, right? That's also how you square something. Either one of those works. True or false? Now, we've said this a couple times now. Do you have to call set width before each element to be formatted or just once? Nope, that was set precision. Each and every time.
Wait.
That's my note here. Set precision, you only set it once. But set W, you have to do each and every time. All right, what include do you use to get ABS and square root and sine and POW? You're going to want to use CMath. I'm sure there's a math.h or a cmath.h, but that's a C file and it's not a C++. We try to restrict ourselves to the C++ header files. All right, what does this evaluate to? Well, the parentheses means that you would do all those first. And then inside the parentheses, we would have to do that first, right? So what's 3 times 2? That's 6. And then we add 4 to it. Makes it 10, and then we tack 1 onto it. Makes it 11. Matching.
I didn't understand what this meant. I looked it up on the book.
Let's do this one first. 5 divided by 3. These are both integers, so it's not going to result in 1.666 or whatever. Instead, it's going to be rounded down. So what's 5 divided by 3 rounded down? 1. How about this one? 5 modulus 3. 3 goes into 5 one time with how many left over? 2. 2 left over. If we have 3 and we take it to the power of 1, that's just 3. And then 2 star 4 slash 2. Well, you got to do the thing inside the parentheses first. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 2 times 2 goes back to being 4. All right, if we're going to use CIN and COUT and stuff like that, what header file do we need? IO stream. Counters that count whole numbers, you do not want to use floating point types. So we would certainly want to use an int. I'm going to see if I can prove to y'all. Did I not do this? If I take something like this, and I say double D is equal to 0.1 times 10, and then I say double E is equal to 10 minus D, and then I see out E, we would expect it to be 0, right? No. Now we would expect it to be 0, right? Because 0.1 times 10 is equal to 1, correct? And then we subtract that from 1. We want to see it say 0. Oh, and it did. Okay, fine. I'm not going to chase that right now. I was trying to illustrate a floating point error, and I thought that I had already gotten that ready for y'all. Nope. Why didn't it work this time? I figured out some other day. All right. If you're going to store somebody's weight, you don't want an int because they might want to enter a decimal point. So that would be a float.
I think double. What about double?
Double would be even better, but I didn't list it. You're right. My recommendation is to never use float and always use double because it is just the default data type for floating point in the language. So why not go with that? It's more precise, less possibility of rounding errors. So you would be well justified in saying B, but hey, dummy, you would really want to use a double. All right. So, which is the stream manipulator function that sets how many digits will be displayed after the decimal point? Set precision. And we have to have a pound sign include to use any of these functions. That's IOManip. Use pound sign include IOManip. But I'm going to delete this part. The pound sign include. You just use IOManip to use set W and set precision.
Wait, could you go back to that question?
Uh-huh.
Sorry. But you
So if we have the following code and the user enters 3.14, I don't even remember the answer to this one. Somebody who took the quiz and got it right. What's the answer? It will round it down? Okay. So what is happening here is that we try to store it in an int, but the user entered a floating point value. Well, in this language, it gets rounded down to an int. It would not crash. That is unlike Java, which would choke if we tried to do that. True or false? I'm enjoying the class so far. I hate this thing. All right. Anyways. Okay, so let me look at the exam and see if there's any other questions I want to review.
Will you grade chapter 4 over the weekend before the test?
Yes. Matter of fact, I'll make a point of doing it tonight. I'll have a late night just because I want to make sure that everything has been graded. All right, so if you have to leave now, that's okay, right? But because you'll be able to watch the video and skip to the end. But let's see if we can take a shot. I think we've already done a fair review by talking about the quiz. Let's go look.
Is there anything to turn in today?
I could make a Dropbox for it. It makes sense to do so. All right, there's a Dropbox there.
Can I see your code?
I'm going to start the review first. I'll bring the code back. I mean, we have been reviewing, but let's do a little bit more. Okay. Which of these or better yet, make them all zeros. Which one of these is a string? Double quotes makes a string. Which one of these is an integer? The last one's an integer. Which one of these is a character? That one, and that means that this is the floating point one. And what were you asking, Michelle?
No.
Okay.
Which one's an integer? Which one's a character?
This one's an int. That's an integer because it's a whole number. This is a float. That's a string. And a string is just composed of an individual characters. We do know that the POW function raises something to the power of something. So if you have 3 POW 3 comma 2, you know that that means 9, right? POW 3 comma 2, that's 9. So if I ask you something like this, you're going to know how to do it. Write code that will display what is your, ID number, and let them enter the results, storing in an int called ID. You know how to do that. Use cout, use cin. What is that using statement? Every time we cut and paste our boilerplate, we get a using statement. What is it? Using namespace std. If you have this expression or this statement, int x equals 3 star 4, I see several things in it. I see a star, I see an int, I see an x, and I see a 3 and a 4. Which of these is a keyword? This is the keyword, right? What about the x?
Variable.
That's a variable. And what is a star? That's an operator. And what does that make 3 and 4? Operands. All right. I think we're good to go, actually. I see one that I'm just going to flat out give you the answer to on the day of the exam, so we're skipping that one. It's one of those binary ones, and we haven't done binary since like day 2 of the class, so give you all the answer to that. So don't stress too much. Open book, open notes, open waving your hand, and asking a professor for help. All I don't want you to do is Google. Go ahead and use the PowerPoints. If you get to the point where you're desperate enough that you would Google, instead just raise your hand and I'll come help.
Can I use Visual Studio?
Yep, now I'll bring the code back up.
No.
Oh yeah, you can use Visual Studio, absolutely. You can use Visual Studio. But if you're writing a program for every question, it's going to take you a long time to get through the exam. Yeah, it's totally fine to use Visual Studio. So was there a specific part of this you needed to see?
No, I didn't start. It's okay.
Right here, leave it here? Okay.